All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to try to make a quick video here. So I'm going to do like the really quick TLDR version of all this. Then I'm going to go into more of the finer details. All right, so the quick version of this is that literally just a couple hours ago, I basically played with Dwarf Lord and the rest of the crew. I'm the Necromancer, Rishi Doom right here. I'm using the cursed Dimvision. Diablo 2 Resurrection Ladder Reset. Dwarf Lord put out a video, said, you know, hey, if you can come play, come help us out on the ladder reset. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll show up with my Necromancer. So I've been a huge fan of Dimvision Necromancer for years, and I've always wanted to make a video on the subject, but it's like, who the hell wants to watch? This is a Paladin, Classic WoW Paladin PvP and PvE channel. This isn't, you know, Diablo 2 channel. So it'd be really weird if I just shat out a Diablo 2 video about some obscure curse that nobody uses that I think is incredibly underrated. You know what I mean? But what happens in the video later on is that near the end here, people kind of start talking shit about my Dimvision build. And they basically, or at least one person does, and he's like, hey man, you should go make a video about Dimvision. And I'm like, joke's on you. I've been wanting to make a video on Dimvision for years. So, you know, let's see, maybe he talks about it right here. Is it here? No?
Hell
no. Huh? No? Okay, whatever. All right, so let's talk about what Dimvision is first, and then we'll get into like the horrific details of Dimvision. So I don't want to bury the lead here. Actually, let's not bury the lead. Let's just assume you know Diablo 2 and talk about why Dimvision is actually fucking awesome, especially on ladder reset. Okay? So the first awesome thing about Dimvision, or probably the most important thing about Dimvision, is that it lets you use items that you otherwise would not be able to use, and subsequently you can gain early access to some really powerful items for a summoning Necromancer. Case in point here would be the Oath word, specifically. You don't have Oath, use an Edge. If you don't, if you have yeah, whatever. So, first off, the Rune word is incredibly cheap. It really only costs you a Maul rune. If you ever play Diablo 2, you'll know how cheap that is. It's 2 poles to make an it's 2 to make a Maul. You can get Maul from a Hellforge, like, you know, drop super easily. Maul, it's like, out of the high runes, there's 3 high runes that really don't count as high runes because of how common they are. They are Pole, and Maul. And so because this thing only costs a Pole and a Maul rune, that makes it insanely fucking cheap. And you can get this thing like super early. You can get it on hardcore. You can get it on solo play. You might never be able to get a beast rune word for your summoning necro, but by fucking god, you can get your hands on an Oath. Oath down here says something weird. It says that it has level 16 Heart of the Wolverine charges. Well, a level 16 Heart of the Wolverine is going to have 350 life. It's going to do 125% damage aura and 130% resistant, attack rating aura. That's kind of insane, especially if you compare it to something like the Beast Rune word. The Beast Rune word gives you a level 9 Fanaticism aura. It only increases party damage by 93% rather than 125%. The Passion Rune word, it's called Passion, I think. Oath Rune word will increase it by. It increases attack rating by 80% of your minions, but again, this Heart of the Wolverine is going to increase it by 130%. So these are noticeable increases in both DPS and attack rating in one item. The only thing that Beast does better than the Oath Rune word is it does 2 things technically. It increases the attack speed of your minions by 30%, which is absolutely fucking amazing. Like a separate damage source, blah, 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 blah. But it's also a really good rune. It's also a good rune. Actually, I guess that's it. I guess that's all it really does. Yeah, it just increases the attack speed by 30%. But Beast is an insanely expensive rune word. It costs like bird, blah, 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 high runes. Good fucking luck getting it. You're not going to get that rune word for a million years. So as a summoning necro, you're either going to live off of an edge bow until you can get an Oath. And you can get an Oath. Oath is amazing. Okay. So, again, I don't want to bury the lead. We're going to assume you know what Dimvision does, and then I will pause. Once I'm done explaining it, I will talk about what Dimvision actually does. The short version of what Dimvision does is that it basically blinds all the minions in an extremely wide area. It's like a screen and a half of blinding the enemies, and they basically just stand there and do nothing and wait for you to kill them. That's literally what they just stand there and they look stupid, is the TLDR on Dimvision. So let's turn down the volume here. So here we're in Chaos Sanctuary. Okay, so these monsters are... Okay, so you see how these monsters are just standing here with these little icons on them? That's a Dimvision icon. They're just standing here basically waiting to die. They're not charging us. They're not doing anything. Yeah, that's the very short version of what Dimvision actually does. It does other cool things, like it stops the enemy from casting range attacks. So if there's a demon that casts like a frost breath or like an AoE fire attack, they just won't do it anymore, which is awesome. Souls that usually spit lightning damage all over the place. Dimvision of them, they just stand there and wait to die. They won't even... If you run up to them in melee, they'll try to melee attack you, but they won't actually cast their range attacks anymore ever, which is cool. Alright. So the first thing Dimvision does is that it's a safety curse. And what I mean by that is that the worse you and your party's gear is, and the worse, the better the curse is. So, basically when it comes to Necromancer curses in Diablo 2, there's really only 3 options for an offensive curse. Let's go to curses really fast here. Option 1 is you can use Amplify Damage. Amplify Damage is fucking amazing. Basically doubles all physical damage the enemies take, and it removes enemy physical damage reduction. If we go over here, we can look at some of the stats. This was a visual I made for... I never made this video, but I was playing Project Diablo 2, and I was looking into Summon Necromancer in Project Diablo 2, and this is just like relevant information, skill points, you know, blah, 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 blah. But here we have like the stats of the actual monsters. So you can see that a Hell mob in Hell has like a 50% damage reduction and like a 30% chance to block. Amplify Damage will completely remove that, that 50% damage reduction, which that's basically how it doubles its damage in the grand scheme of things. I could be wrong about that, but that's pretty much what it does. So that's a really big deal. So Amplify Damage, amazing for increasing physical damage, synergizes spectacularly with Corpse Explosion, because Corpse Explosion is split 50-50 between fire damage and physical damage, AoE Blast. You can see here it says it does between 60 to 100% of the corpse's life, and it does that split half between physical. Yeah, so this will... Amplify Damage will noticeably increase Corpse Explosion's damage, especially against like fire-resistant mobs, which most mobs in Diablo 2 are resistant to fire. So that's the first curse that most people use, is just Amplify Damage everything. You put enough skill points into this thing, and it can cover a very wide area. It has a very great duration, blah, 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 blah. It's also a 1-point wonder. You basically have to put like 1 point in this thing, and you can already see with plus 15 skills here, it'll cover like a 12-yard radius and has like a 53 second duration. Probably only a 10-second duration in a Hell, but that's perfectly fine, especially for a 12-yard radius. Our Dimvision here is 65-second cooldown, 22-yard radius, and it's not even maxed out with skill points. I usually like to put like 15 points into Dimvision in this build specifically. But the other one is, let's get her active here, is lower resists. So I'm going to put a few points in here. I'm going to make this a level 20 lower resist. So at level 20 lower resist, it reduces the resistance of all enemies in a very wide radius, like 17-yard radius, 58 duration at 20 skill points, reduces it by like 60%, 65%, somewhere around there, depending upon your plus skills. Those are the 2 curses that are basically being opportunity costed against Dimvision, right? And the TLDR here is that the better your gear gets, and the better your party members' gear gets, the more amplified damage and lower resistance becomes good. Okay, so if your enemy, if your party members have, let's say they have like they have max resistances, they're like, you know, fully geared out, they're like level 90 plus, blah 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 blah. Lower resist curse is probably going to be better than dim vision under the vast majority of circumstances. However, you also notice that dim vision is at that level of gearing, assuming you're an equal gear level to them, you would have noticed that dim vision is also a one curse wonder. So amplified damage is a one curse wonder when you have plus 15 to all skills. I don't know why we have plus 15 to curses, but let's just roll with it. Lower resist is also a bit of a one curse wonder, but dim vision is that one curse that actually needs points put into it. So it's not like you can't have this in the toolkit and pull it out on top of having like dim vision, a type of a deal. Let's see here. Right. So the better you and your team's gear is, the better off you are using either amplified damage or lower resistances. But the inverse of this is also true. The worse you and your team's gear is, the worse your resistances are, the blah, 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 the more dim vision is just absolutely fucking amazing, because it just shuts everything down on the map, and it just stands there and basically waits for you to kill it. Absolutely awesome in that sense. The second thing here is that it lets you gear much more glass cannon and be perfectly safe. So you can find ways to convert that glass cannon into better damage performance on your necromancer specifically. I'll give you an example. So if you're using dim vision, you don't really care what your resistances are anymore. If you're using dim vision, you don't care what your block chance is. If you're using dim vision, you really don't care about anything on your gear whatsoever, because you're just never going to get hit. Nothing's ever going to cast a spell at you. It's just not really going to happen. At worst, you need like cold resist, in case some monsters, like, you know, blow up in your vicinity. But generally speaking, you can get away with really dog shit resistances in hell. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to put on way more plus skill items than you otherwise would put on, or put on other items that you otherwise would not even be able to consider. So again, like this edge bow down here, like who the hell wears an edge bow as a summoning necromancer? Well, if you don't have to like resummon your skeletons all the time because your enemies are basically just waiting to die all over the place, you don't need it. You're perfectly fine. You're perfectly safe. You can put on that edge bow and get that Thorns aura. You can put on those stones of Jordan and get your skill points up to Narnia, so your corpse explosions are even bigger. Heck, you have plenty of spare points that you could go like Poison Nova if you want to, rather than Corpse Explosion. Wouldn't advise it, but there's a lot of spare points in this build as well in the grand scheme of things. We already covered 3. It allows you to use items that you otherwise wouldn't use. We talk about why Oath is so disgusting. We're going to go into more detail on that. Edge Bow, I got to talk about why that's such a big fucking deal. And then we got to talk about this making corpses thing. So I'll do this really fast. So the other thing that amplified damage... Okay, is this the right thing? Yeah. The other thing that dim vision does for you... So again, the elephant in the room here is this. When you're playing a summon necromancer, you're basically trying to make 1 or 2 bodies on the ground as quickly as possible so you can corpse explosion them and then basically wipe the entire screen. So your goal isn't really to kill every single monster there is on your screen with just the summons. Your goal is just to kill like 1 or 2 enemy mobs as quickly as possible in order to blow everything up, basically, right? And when doing that, there's basically a few options. Option number 1 is to invest in skeletal mages, and then pair skeletal mages with lower resist curse to try to kill mobs, to try to generate corpses for corpse explosions as quickly as possible. The far more common one is to amplify damage everything. And then pretty much rely on your mercenary to kill the enemy mob or to start making corpses as quickly as possible. And then with amplify damage on, you'll have even more powerful corpse explosions, right? Like that whole deal. That works really, really good. What Dimvision does, strangely, is that it how do I put this? I've tried to time how quickly amplify damage makes corpses for me to blow up the screen, and time it with how quickly Dimvision makes corpses for me to blow up the screen. And as near as I can tell, the Dimvision is about it's about 80% as fast as amplify damage at making those corpses, and that's before we factor in Oath. So even if I don't have the Oath Runeword, it's about 80% as quick as making corpses to blow up the screen as amplify damage is. You start factoring in the Oath Runeword, you start factoring in other things, and it becomes even more competitive, but, you know, blah, 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 blah. All right, so what Dimvision does, which is really interesting, is that it freezes all the enemy mobs in place. We're going to assume that these mobs over here are enemy mobs. The guys in red are basically the enemy mobs, and here we have our mercenary, we have our skeleton army. If I don't Dimvision them, let's say I amplify damage these guys instead, what'll basically happen is something like this. The enemy minions will basically slam into... that's terrible. Let's get a better one here. There we go. The enemy minions will basically slam into my army, and they'll form like a wall of my skeletons and revives versus a wall of the enemy skeletons and revives. And it actually won't do it out here. It'll be... let's do this realistically, because this is actually important. Okay? So what'll happen is my skeletons will rush over and engage the enemy monsters. The enemy monsters will close a little bit of a distance. But the mercenary will be lagging behind. The reason why the mercenary is lagging behind is because you can't really increase your mercenary's movement speed in any viable way in Diablo 2. So the mercenary's movement speed is kind of slow compared to your skeletons in particular and your other summoned revives. I do believe Skeleton Mastery, if I recall correctly, something in Skeleton Mastery or Summon Mastery or whatever the hell increases the movement speed of your skeletons. So your skeletons eventually become fast as fuck, boy, which is awesome. But what it means is that they're going to pin down in a wall the enemy mobs, and this is if I amplify damage, right? And basically, I'm entirely dependent upon my fucking mercenary moving his slow bitch ass over here and poking one of these mobs to death. Now, he's going to do like double fucking damage when he gets here because I've amplified damage these guys. But Jesus fucking Christ, is he slow as hell trying to move up and kill one of these mobs. The reason why I'm entirely dependent upon this is because, yeah, even though my skeletons and revives are in combat, they're basically splitting their damage all over the place for the enemy pack. Compare that to, say, let's move these guys over here. Compare that to, say, what Dimvision does for like Corpse Explosion. So, that's terrible. Control Z, grab this, move that over here. Dimvision will do something more like this. If I Dimvision these mobs, what will happen is all these skeletons will run over and start gang banging on one of the mobs. Okay, they will literally, you'll have like all your minions and all your revives will start kicking the shit out of the closest mob because the enemy mobs are blinded. They can't really form that wall anymore. And what will happen is by the time my mercenary gets over there to actually kill this mob, and keep in mind, my mercenary might be fucking off in Narnia for some reason, like attacking something over here, which is also really bad. But by the time he gets over here, the mob is usually half dead or is basically already dead. So very quickly, he'll just poke it to death with his Insight Runeword weapon and kill it. And the next thing I know, I'm off to the races with corpse explosions. And these guys will start murdering the crap out of the other mobs in general. So in a very weird roundabout way, and it all has to do with like movement speed and ganging up on your enemies and killing them as quickly as possible, I found that Dimvision is actually competitive with amplify damage for making corpses. It becomes even better, of course, when you factor in that we get to safely wear an Oath Runeword for my minions having 125% increased damage and 130% increased attack rating. So now they're really fucking murdering this mob. But on top of the fact that I get to kind of ignore my resistances and my gearing choices. So when I corpse explode, I have a noticeably larger area of effect corpse explosion with the Dimvision curse than I would with, say, the amplify damage. Now, okay, don't get it twisted, okay? If your gear is good enough, if you are wearing endgame gear in Diablo 2, then amplify damage is going to be better for your skeletons and your mercenary. What is it? And then the lower resistances is also a really, really good option. But that's if you have like the really fucking good gear in the game. I'm talking like you got the Bramble Runeword. You have, I swear to God, I think it's actually Grief is the poison weapon you want in your hand. For your minions, you're using like a Poison Nova with a Corpse Explosion is fucking amazing. You get the idea. But those are really expensive long-term goals for your Summon Necromancer. If we're talking about fresh ladder reset or first week of gameplay goals, Dimvision is absolutely fucking amazing. That's basically what my point is here. So again, Dimvision, the worse you and your party are, the better it is. It allows you to build more like a glass cannon, so that makes it amazing for ladder reset. It lets you gear completely differently, and you can start using rune words that you otherwise wouldn't use. So when I do ladder resets, I usually don't have an Oath Rune word. My gear is trash, so I'm definitely going to go Dimvision. I'll try to get my hands on an Edge Rune word. And I'll use the Edge Rune word in conjunction with an Insight Mercenary until I can get my hands on an Oath, right? And at that point, I'll be using an Oath with a swappable Edge Rune word weapon. And I'm going to go try to showcase that right now. I don't know where my Edge bow went. That's actually kind of pissing me off, and I don't know why. Well, let me just showcase something here really fast. So I'm going to jump into my puggies here really quick. So usually when I play Diablo 2, I don't like playing on the ladder. I find it's too easy. I like playing hardcore, but if you play hardcore on the ladder, you're kind of dumb. So this is my puggies hardcore on the ladder. You can see we got my level 68 hardcore, or level 65 hardcore necromancer, my 78 paladin who's got all the really good gear. And then a trap, a finding assassin, and this is my my shout magic barb for hardcore. Now, I don't know where my edge bow is on this stupid character, and I basically undid all of his skills. But edge bow, yada yada. I could go on Project Diablo 2 and showcase it, I guess. I don't know. Should I go do that? Hard to say. We don't want this. So I don't know where my edge bow actually went off to. But I have an edge bow somewhere around here that this guy is supposed to have as a swappable. But right now he's just got an Ancient's Pledge. I think I was trying to test things with it or some shit. And I legitimately don't know where his edge bow went off to. Is that a bill? See if I can't find it really fast, and we'll give up here in a hot second. Boom. 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 Doesn't look like we have it. Yeah, so I don't know what character is currently using his edge bow, to be perfectly honest. But he's supposed to have an edge bow here. So he'll basically swap between items that he's going to use to summon his skeleton army, and then he'll literally just swap to an edge bow. And I wanted to talk about why edge bow is so good, especially compared with Dimvision. But let's just get at it. I just wanted to show that I kind of know what I'm talking about here. If it isn't obvious, you know, I actually play Diablo 2 hardcore, blah, 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 blah. Why did you not terminate? What's going on here? What seems to be the problem? Are you okay? You gonna bug out on me? All right, whatever. Let's see if we do this. We're still recording. Roger that. So let's go to the bestiary in Ariat Summit. You're not going to be able to see this, but I'm going to talk about it for a hot second, okay? Again, don't want to bury the lead. Here's the 2-minute version, okay? So when you're playing a summon necromancer in Diablo 2, there's only one thing you're going to run into, especially if you're using Dimvision. There's only one thing you're going to run into that's going to even remotely give your summoning army problems, and that is running into everybody's favorite, a unique monster pack that is both extra strong, is aura enchanted, and is cursed. The reason for this is because they go from doing something like 200 damage per auto attack to something stupid like 1,000 damage per auto attack, and they're basically going to start one-shotting your skeletons. So when you run into these packs, what they basically do is not only are they incredibly dangerous to you, but they'll start chewing through your summons like a blending machine. Basically, you'll feel like you stuck your dick in a blender, throwing your skeleton army into those type of elite packs. And if you don't have some kind of reflect damage, the easiest way to deal with them is basically some kind of reflect damage. But you're still looking at needing something like a Bramble Runeword or an Edge Bow is by far the cheapest option. And I think there's some... You could put points into the Iron Maiden Curse, but you'd want to have that be like a 1-point wonder type deal. But I've found that in conjunction with Dimvision, especially when you're a poor, broke little bitch, or the Edge Bow is by far the best. And we'll explain why here. But basically, when you run into those really scary packs that do a shit ton of damage, if you don't have any reflect damage, what'll happen is it'll be your army versus their army, and you'll basically be in a fight for your life. But when you do have some reflect damage, you'll see some skeletons pop here and there, and the enemies will die, like, super quick because they're killing themselves super fast with the reflect damage. And then you basically just corpse explosion up the map, and you're like, I wonder what killed, 3 or 4 of my skeletons. And you just press W, swap over to your offhand weapons, resummon up your skeletons, and march on forward. So having an Edge Bow as a swappable item is incredibly good. But I found that with Dimvision, it's actually a main weapon until you can get your hands on a Oath Runeword. So let's talk about why this is. Alright, so mobs in Diablo 2 have some weird fucking stats, especially in Hell. So we're only going to talk about Hell monsters. Here you can see I have them written down. Uber has 3,000 defense, 500 damage melee attacks, 16k attack rating, which is like Jesus Christ. But your typical Hell mobs have, like, this is a Venom Lord, I think it is, which is typical in my book. 2,000 defense. They do about like 125 damage on average. They have 5,000-ish attack rating, a 30% chance to block, and then they have like a 50% damage reduction and like 10 fucking thousand hit points. And that's before you're putting things into the game such as players 8, players 4, whatever you want to do. So very quickly they get up to like 20,000-ish HP. But you'll notice this fascinating disparity between how much HP they have and how much stats they have and how scary they are with actually how much damage they do. Why am I trying to say this? What am I trying to say here? Okay, how do I want to say this? Okay, cool. Let's go look at our skeletons here really fast. Let's go look at our summoning options as a summoning necromancer. Okay, so here we have, you're not going to be able to see it, so I'll just tell you. Here we have a summoning necromancer that has plus 15 to all skills. Again, we're using Dimvision, so we can get away with being absolutely psychotic with plus all skills. My skeletons, despite having 20 points in skeleton summon and skeleton mastery, they only do about 450 damage. I'm going to say this is bugged, and I'm just going to say it's closer to 500. On average, my skeleton summons are going to do about 500-ish damage per attack, unbuffed. But you can see the revive down here, of which I have 1 point in, but I can summon 16 of them. Nobody puts more than 1 point in revive. At least I don't think so. Let me try. Yeah, it's just increasing the number. They're gaining almost 400% increase in life, but what do we care? They were already immortal. But they only go up like 350% increase in damage. Well, what does that put my revive damage at? Well, on average, the hell mobs I'm reviving will do like 125 damage. If I multiply that by like actually I need to multiply that by 4.5 for a plus 350% increase, you can see that they're pretty goddamn close in damage to my skeleton summon mobs. Keeping in mind my skeleton summoning mobs, you know, they're kind of, I don't know how to describe it. You need them. I'm just gonna say you can't live off just revives. You need your fucking skeleton summons. At least normally you do. What am I trying to say here? The point I'm trying to get at here is that let's go here. The point I'm trying to get here is that we want our skeleton minions to be doing as much damage as they possibly can to make corpses as quickly as possible, especially when using Dimvision, because they're going to be the main. Like if I was using amplified damage, my mercenary becomes my main generator of corpses so that I can blow up the entire screen. But if you're using Dimvision, your summons become the main source of damage because they're going to run over here super fucking fast and basically gangbang one enemy mob at a time, right? So getting their damage up becomes incredibly important. Now, the revives don't really need any help with that. They just need... Your revives just need... They don't need much help in the attack rating department, but they need a little bit of help in the attack rating department. They definitely don't need any help in the HP department. They need significant amounts of help in the damage department. They do just as much damage as your summoning skeletons, roughly speaking. But your revives also tend to be slow as balls. It depends on what you're reviving, but your skeletons are always there, and they're always fast as fuck, and they're always really good at jumping on things and gangbanging them to death to make you corpses. Your revives, maybe not so much. Sometimes you revive like the Maulers, if you revive them, or the Ogres, or whatever the hell people call them, which is a premium mob that you want to try to revive. They're kind of fucking slow. They move slow as balls. They're even slower than your mercenary. They're not going to generate corpses for you very fast. Revives are just really good at holding the line. Whereas the skeletons are kind of more of the killing power potential of your summoning army. But what I really wanted to point out here beforehand is how good an edge bow actually is in the grand scheme of things. Because the edge bow is going to return... The edge bow is going to return about 800% damage to the enemy when hit. And even when you're getting hit by like basic mobs, unlike your skeletons, we'll talk about that in a second, they get hit really, really fucking easy. 125 damage multiplied by 8 is still fucking terrifying. So when these skeletons are all gangbanging this mob over here, trying to kill him as quickly as possible, this mob is going to be attacking back. And even if he succeeds in hitting the skeletons, I kind of hope he succeeds in hitting the skeletons, he's still going to take like 1,000 damage return. Return damage is kind of weird in Diablo 2. Return damage basically completely bypasses the 50% damage reduction. At least I think it does. I could be wrong about that. But basically, if your mob, if this enemy mob does 1,000 points of damage to my, if this mob hits my skeleton for 125 points of damage, takes 1,000 damage in return, that 1,000 damage, for some reason, I don't believe is going to get reduced by the minus 50% that they have. If this mob was physically immune, then he wouldn't take any damage from the reflect damage whatsoever, but for some reason, I'm pretty sure he just eats the 1,000 damage, and it completely bypasses the 50% physical damage reduction. This is a noticeable damage increase when you're trying to kill a lot of enemies, especially when you have like a bunch of revives running around. It means that you're mainly using edge to protect you against enemy mobs that are using curse, aura enchanted, extra strong, against the really scary stuff that your army can potentially run into. That's primarily why you're using edge. But it's not like edge isn't a noticeable kill time increase outside of those circumstances. But however, the vast majority of the time, your skeletons are going to have fucking amplify damage on them, which is going to double that 1,000 damage. So they're going to eat like a 2,000 damage hit. Edge bow is just amazing, and again, it's one of those things you couldn't possibly use without using Dimvision. It's just no point to it. The last thing to talk about here is increasing the stats on your minions. Right. So the weird thing about trying to again, okay. If I was using... there's 3 possible curses you can use as a summoning necromancer to make corpses to blow things up. The first one is amplify damage, the second one is lower resistances, and the third and final one is dim vision. Amplify damage makes you entirely reliant on your mercenary to make corpses, which has its advantages and disadvantages. Lower resistances means you're mercenary dependent, and you are skeletal mage dependent upon making the corpses. Dim vision splits the it splits it puts the reliance on making corpses more upon your skeletons specifically, and your mercenary and your summons your revive secondarily, which means that suddenly we have a vested interest in our gearing to make our skeleton warriors as combat capable as possible, if you're following me on this, okay? The revives have enough attack rating on their own. They really just need percent damage boosts in order to be really, really good. Your skeleton warriors, on the other hand, have noticeably bad attack rating. So if I scroll over this skeleton warrior, keep in mind this is a level 35 skeleton warrior, which is not where you're going to be at early on in hell whatsoever. They only have 1,000 attack rating and 1,000 melee defense. And they only have like almost 1,000 life in hell. They're not that durable, and they're not that great, especially if you're fighting on like players 8. They need something like a dim vision curse to really help protect them, both from help keeping them alive, but also to help them like gangbang on top of the enemy, right? So skeletons kind of suck unless you're actually using dim vision in the grand scheme of things, like unironically. But they're still pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, even without dim vision. Amplify damage. If your gear gets good enough, you start getting like bramble chest, beast, Runeword for a weapon, and what else would you possibly want? Or even something like Enigma. You can just teleport on top of things and blow them up that way. When you're fully geared, none of what I'm about to say really matters. But when you're struggling for gear, what I'm about to say is kind of a big deal. So, in order to get, let's just talk about math here really fast, okay? Let's just talk math. All right, let's just talk math. All right. So, even if I had 1,000 attack rating skeleton, it would still only have like a 30%, a 33% chance to hit your basic mob in hell. Most mobs in hell have a 2,000 melee defense. I can tell you right now that if I have 1,000 attack rating versus 2,000 defense, I'm going to have about a 33% chance to hit the target. If I had 2,000 attack rating versus 2,000 defense, I'd have a 50% chance to hit the target. If I had 4,000 attack rating, I would have a 66%. If I had 3 times the attack rating, I would have a 75%. If I had 4 times the attack rating, I would have an 80%. All right? So what this means is that our skeletons, when they enter hell, can't hit fuck all, and therefore cannot do any fucking damage without giving them some kind of an attack rating buff. Okay? Now, there's really only 2 sources of attack rating buff that you can find in the game to really give your skeletons. The first one is to use a Blessed Aim Mercenary. That'll get you something stupid like a level 15 Blessed Aim Aura. I can't remember what the hell it is. It'll give you so much attack rating to your skeleton minions that you won't even have to... they'll have like an 80%, 90% chance to hit just about everything in the game. Typically, completely worth it. The attack rating Mercenary is not bad at all. But it's opportunity costed against a Nightmare Act 2 mercenary that has the Might aura, which I do believe will give your skeleton minions. I really want to look it up. I can't remember off the top of my head. I know what it is for Project Diablo 2, but I don't know what it is for classes, items, NPCs. Okay, cool. That'll probably have the information that I want. Hello? We'll go Act 2, Loot Go Lane. We want to find the mercenaries. Where do I find mercenaries? NPC index, all NPCs, Act 2 NPCs. Where do I find stats on mercenaries? Any ideas? People? Maps, shrines, quests, monsters, items, skills, classes, basics. Alright, NPC. This is the NPC index. Citizens of the Pandemonium, Defenders of Argus, Dwellers. Where's NPCs? I can't remember. That's really annoying. Alright, let's see if I missed something. I really don't know. I can't remember. Alright, whatever. So, your choices for buffing these skeletons basically comes down to, do I get a Blessed Aim Merc, but I don't get the Might Aura Merc, or do I get the Might Aura Merc and I don't get the Blessed Aim Merc? Well, even the Beast Runeword doesn't really improve this argument whatsoever, because an 80% increase to attack rating isn't all that much. Your skeletons won't even have a 50% chance to hit the mobs in hell, which is really, really bad. This plus 130% increase to attack rating is a bit better. Yeah, so what am I trying to say here? I'm going to assume it's a level 20-ish aura. I'm going to assume that my mercenaries spit out like a level 20-ish aura by the end of all things. So I know that that's going to be something like a 700% increase to attack rating from like a Blessed Aim mercenary. And it's going to be something like a 400% increase to, I think it's a 400% increase to a Might aura. Let's go Paladin offensive auras, Might aura. Let's scroll out to 20. 20 is only 200%. Okay, we'll assume 200% on the Might aura then. Let's scroll down for Blessed Aim to make sure I'm not crazy. Blessed Aim is going to be only a 300% increase to attack rating. Okay. Interesting. I'm glad I checked it. Thank God. So option 1 is I get, you know what? Let me pause the video and I'll actually write down the math of the various options. Okay? That way I'm not sitting here. Yeah, I'm going to delete these guys and I'm going to write down the various math so we can look at this in no uncertain detail. Because suddenly I want to do the math even for myself. Let me pause the video. Option, yeah, every time P pauses and unpauses the thing. So every time I press P, it's going to unpause. Option 2 would be, what's it called? Blessed Aim. Bless A plus Oath. All right, we'll call it option 2. Is there a third option here? Let me think. There's only possibilities, right? Just option 1, option 2. All right, cool. Let me pause the video and I'll actually crunch the numbers and put some equal signs here and see what we got going on. Hooray. Okay. Pause. All right, we are back. So I've actually done the math here, give or take. So our options are as follows, and this is if we're like a poor, broke-back bitch, right? All we have to our name basically is an Oath Runeword or an Edge bow. What are the options as far as mercenaries are concerned? So the first option is we go with a Might mercenary with an Oath, and the second option is we go with a Blessed Aim mercenary also with an Oath. So if we go with the Might mercenary, our skeletons, and this is even if they have a 1,000 attack rating. So again, that like 20 skill points into skeleton summon or summon skeleton, and then plus 15 skills on top of that. All right, so we're already terrifyingly well geared. They're gonna have a 55% chance to hit the target at 2,400 AR. Even worse, hitting boss. Maybe they'll have like a 40% chance to hit bosses. But when they do hit with all this 350% increased damage, they'll do like, 2,250 damage. The revives do a bit better at an 85% chance to hit, and they do a little bit more damage. But again, they're going to be slower to get to the target. The other option, of course, is the Blessed Aim with the Oath. This gives the skeletons closer to like 6,000 attack rating, but they only have a plus 125% damage rather than 350. But this gives them a 75% chance to hit the target in most hell difficulties, even better when hitting, or they're going to have like a 2/3 chance to hit. Let me think about this. Yeah, they'll have exactly a 2/3 chance to hit an Uber or a boss in the game, which is pretty fucking good compared to the 40% chance to hit that we had over here. But they're doing like half the fucking damage, right? Which is the downside. Meanwhile, your revives aren't really going to miss whatsoever. The TLDR on this basically means that if I'm a freshly played broke bitch, right? Like if I don't have those plus 15 stats, if I don't have plus 15 to skills, and I'm using Dimvision, I probably should go with a Blessed Aim Merc until the attack rating of my skeletons gets high enough. If I can get the attack rating of my summoned skeletons high enough, then I'm better off going with the Might Mercenary. But Oath is still noticeably doing work here. And this is kind of one of the weird things about the Beast Runeword, because the Beast Runeword, even though it has attack rating on it, it kind of pigeonholes you into going and getting a Blessed Aim Mercenary, whether you like it or not, because it doesn't have anywhere near enough attack rating. Whereas you can see here that the Oath Runeword is honestly kind of getting really close to giving us a good hit rating. Let me do the math on this like really quick and see how bad the damage is. So I think here I got to take 55% of this, and I take 75% of that. Right? Okay. So let's take 1250 times 0.75. Okay, so these skeletons per attack on average are doing, thank you. These skeletons here on average are doing 750-ish damage per attack with their 75% hit chance. My bad, 950 damage on average. That's pretty fucking good. Let's take the other one. Let's go 2250 and then multiply that by their hit chance, which is 55%. So yeah, so these skeletons up here are doing noticeably better in damage, but that's again with like the plus 15 skills. What's going to happen to you is that you're going to enter hell, especially early on, like skeletons that have like 700 attack rating, like if you're lucky, right? And not 1,000 attack rating. And at that point, the math is going to go so horribly not in your favor, it's not even going to be funny. You basically have to live with a Blessed Aim Merc. But the nice thing about the Oath is that you can see that very quickly is competitive. Let me pause the video and get the stats on like a beast compared to an Oath by comparison. Well, the elephant in the room here is that if I had a beast Runeword, I'd be using amplified damage, right? Like that's the really big elephant in the room. One last thing I forgot to mention about Dimvision. Let's do a bunch of Control Z's here. One last thing I forgot to mention about Dimvision that actually noticeably increases the DPS of your skeletons, and this is probably the last big one. I'll put it in the comment section, is that let's say I was using amplified damage instead, right? So my skeletons are forming like this weird like line, like battle line against the enemy. It's like my summons versus the enemy summon wall. And not only I'm like 100% completely dependent upon my mercenary to get his ass over there and make corpses for me so I can blow up the screen, blah, 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 blah. To make this even worse, your skeletons don't have a lot of melee defense compared to the enemy monsters in Hell's attack rating. So there's a lot of times where if you actually watch your skeletons fighting, they'll get hit pretty hard by the enemy monsters' attacks, and it'll actually stun them, and it'll actually break them out of their attack animation. So your skeletons are actually losing quite a bit of attack percentages. Just assume they're at like a minus 30% attack speed due to being stunned by the enemy monsters because you haven't dim visioned them. You don't have this whatsoever when they're basically gangbanging on one mob. There's no minus reduction to your minions' attack speed due to them suffering basically stun lock mechanic from taking too much damage. Not that big of a deal because, again, the elephant in the room here, of course, is corpse explosion. You're just looking to make a few corpses and then blow up the entire screen. But this hopefully helps explain why I love Dim Vision so much. When I'm fresh on ladder, you better believe I'm using Dim Vision because my gear sucks, everybody's gear sucks, our resistances suck. It's just the best curse possible for you under just about any circumstances on like a fresh ladder reset. The other... What's the other thing? Oh, and then it continues to be amazing for you because you can use the edge bow, which is really good, in conjunction with like a Blessed Aim Mercenary. And then after a while, you graduate into the Oath Runeword, and then you're still using that with a with a Blessed Aim Mercenary. And then finally, when your gear gets really good, but you haven't gotten your hands on like a Beast Runeword or a Bramble Runeword yet, so you're in that. Yeah, my gear is really good, but I still don't have any high runes for the really good rune words that I want. Oath is there for you again because you can switch over to an Act 2 Might Mercenary and get some really good advantage out of that. Yeah, so hopefully that's pretty much all I have to say about Dim Vision. So hopefully you can see why I didn't want to make this video. I'm just like, why do I want to throw an hour-long video about my favorite curse in Diablo 2 and just talk for an hour about Dim Vision in Diablo 2 and why I think it's fucking amazing. But she is really interesting, especially the whole movement mechanics being competitive with amplified damage. So if we go back to the Dwarf Lord video here really fast. So let's go back to when we were doing Hell Chaos for like some of the first times, because we were kind of struggling there for a little while. Okay, yeah. So we killed Mephisto, and then we'll just do our first like Hell run here really quick. Is this it? Yeah. So we killed Mephisto, and now we're trying to do Chaos Sanctuary runs, but we're like super low level. Are we not there yet? Okay, maybe we're here now. Okay, so. If you stop and think about my options as a necromancer here, right? As like a fresh playing necromancer. If I were to, let's say, it's fresh ladder, so our gear is going to suck balls. So amplifying damage on everything is a terrible idea. We don't have the gear for that. Most of our team comp is consisting of spellcasters, which is what most people play like on fresh ladder, right? We have a paladin who has conviction aura, so we already have a really good amount of lower enemy resistances just in that conviction aura right there. There are only two good curses I can possibly do for my party right here. The first one is lower resistances, which is basically what they were talking shit. I assume they were talking shit about me for not using, okay? If I use the lower resistance curse, what's going to happen is that we're going to kill the enemy mobs noticeably faster because it is increasing our damage on them. Keep in mind, you cannot lower enemy resistances below 100%. There's a cap on it. So we can lower them to minus 100%, but we can't lower them to like minus 101%. So putting this conviction aura on this paladin is probably lowering enemy resistances by like 120%. If I throw down a resistance aura, resistance curse as well, it might not even fucking do anything under a lot of circumstances. But from my perspective as the necromancer, suddenly my skeleton summons are going to be breathed on all over the place with like fire. My skeleton minions are super weak because I don't have any fucking gear. My summon resist sucks. My skeletons specifically are going to be popping left, right, and center, which means I would have to tank with nothing but revives. On top of that, we'd be in a much more dangerous world at that point, so there'd be a much higher risk of me dying as the necromancer and my revive army just like disappearing, which would be a catastrophe for continuing to push forward. So all these factors basically have me being like, all right, yep, nope, we're doing a max rank Dimvision, is basically the TLDR on that. No, I think I made the right call, but some people did not approve of the Dimvision necroplay. But fuck you, you're wrong, and I am right. So GG's. Anyways, on the video here, and day is full.